Kevin.
Hello, Rebecca.
Thank you for joining me for another Readathon. It's been a little bit.
It's been a minute.
It's been a minute because we went away, and lots has happened.
Such as?
Well, some of the ladies who were visited by Trooper Yuri Buchanan have been served with summons to appear in court for harassing witnesses. Yeah, some other stuff has happened, stuff like that, which, we can talk about in a future edition. But there's some bigger news that I really want to talk about in this edition of the Readathon.
Okay.
Norfolk County District Attorney Michael Morrissey has announced this week that he has appointed a special prosecutor to try Karen Read at her second trial in January.
Okay.
So Adam Lally has not been benched, but he's still on the team, but he's no longer going to be first chair, apparently. The new attorney that has been appointed is named Hank Brennan, and he is best known for defending Whitey Bulger.
Oh, well, okay.
Do you want to explain to our audience who might not know who James Whitey Bulger is? He was had a big trial in 2013.
Yeah, let's see. He's Johnny Depp in that movie.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, he's a famous Boston mobster. His brother was Billy Bulger, who was the Massachusetts State Senate president. He basically ran the Winter Hill Gang, which was the Irish Mafia in Boston, and he had the FBI in his pocket, and the FBI people tipped him off that they were coming for him. He went on the run, and was eventually arrested and shivved in prison.
He was in the run for a long time. Yeah.
Where's Whitey? Where's Whitey? It's if you were somebody who was around back in the day, you would remember that story. So,
right.
Anyway, that's who Whitey Bulger is.
Yeah. So Michael Morrissey's statement said, quote, Attorney Brennan is a highly respected and skilled former prosecutor and longtime defense attorney with over 25 years of experience in state and federal courts and has experience handling complex law enforcement matters. Interesting. That was
Whitey Bulger's pretty complex. Yeah, I'd give him that.
Yes. Yeah. And then this was actually Brennan's statement. Are you ready for this? I assume full responsibility and all obligations for prosecuting this case and will do so meticulously, ethically, and zealously without compromise. Quote, I have two core obligations. The first is to make certain that Karen Read receives a fair trial. Ms. Read will receive the dignity and fairness that every defendant deserves in our criminal justice system. The second is to ensure that the facts surrounding John O'Keefe's death are fully and fairly aired in the courtroom without outside influence. So he's an outside person that's being brought in. This is not dissimilar to like Thiru Vignarajah being brought in on the Anand Syed case.
Oh yeah, that's
by
great.
The state.
Yeah, super.
But there's actually some interesting commentary about this that I read that I just want to run by you to ask you what you think.
Okay.
There is a federal investigation into this investigation going on right now. Okay,
right.
We know that.
Right.
With the Sandra Birchmore case going on. Morrissey's office was involved in that case. Morrissey's office was one of the decision makers to not pursue the Birchmore case as a prosecution initially. The feds were the ones who made the arrest and are pursuing the Birchmore case, right? Of course, Morrissey knows that the feds are watching this Karen Read prosecution closely as they are investigating the prosecution of this case and the investigation of this case. The commentary that I saw about this that was interesting, and this is, you're not going to read this on CBS News, you're not going to read this on WBUR, this is actually a lawyer who posted this on X, is that there is an excellent chance that what Morrissey is doing here is a preemptive strike by hiring this outside person to show that, see, I know that we need an outside person here because I want to mitigate any chance of there being impropriety in the prosecution of this case, because he understands that like the circle is closing in on him and his office around the prosecution of this case. And this is sort of a preemptive strike. What do you think?
Interesting. So the theory is that he's doing this to protect himself in the court of public opinion?
That
or
and
with
also,
a jury?
And also
with
the federal investigation.
The federal investigation.
Yeah, to add some padding so that the feds can't call it all like an inside job, so to speak. So to bring in somebody from the outside to show the feds a layer of, quote, ethicism that he believes he's being accused of, behind the scenes in this federal investigation. It's an interesting take, and actually, not necessarily, I think, wrongheaded. And if you look at the statement that this lawyer put out, I mean, the other thing too is I think that they're trying to just match Jackson in the courtroom. Okay, that's very clear. Okay, so they're bringing in this defense attorney, this high-profile defense attorney, to try to match another high-profile defense attorney in the courtroom. Clearly, Lally was outmatched in the courtroom, but without question, right? Mm-hmm. But if you read the statement that this lawyer made, he talked about fairly prosecuting Karen Read. Okay, a fair trial with dignity and fairness to ensure the facts surrounding John O'Keefe's death are fully and fairly aired in the courtroom. And then without outside influence, like, I believe he's going to do more around, who's sitting in the courtroom. I think it's also going to include Turtle Boy stuff. He might try to keep Turtle Boy out. He might try to keep, he could be addressing here whether or not Jen McCabe would be allowed to sit and stare at the jury, which many people saw as very unethical, something that, the prosecution shouldn't have allowed, something that the judge shouldn't have allowed. So what he's basically putting a plant in here is, I'm going to make this one above reproach. That's what how his statement reads to me. And that seems like a preemptive strike. That's what this lawyer said on Twitter.
Well, it's interesting you use the term preemptive strike. So do you mean like a preemptive defensive move?
Yeah, like a preemptive way to say, see, we checked this box. See, we're being fair.
Okay. I'm not quite certain how to read it. Other than, I think that one has to just start with the question, why did you feel this was necessary? As opposed to why this guy? This guy seems he's interesting but then later I think you have also start pondering well, what will this guy do? What will he do that the line prosecutor that they have or somebody else in their office couldn't do? If the district attorney's office is so concerned about appearances, that they got to stop sending people involved with the case to serve papers on people accused of ancillary offenses related to the same case.
Yeah.
They can't have those state troopers going out and questioning people about whether or not they're intimidating witnesses. That's not to say that the government doesn't have the right to inquire about that, but on what planet does anybody think it's a good look that it's those guys?
Yeah.
There are more than 3 people in the Massachusetts State Police, right?
Yes.
There may not be more in that office, but if you really need, if there's any fucking case, maybe the Birchmore case is probably even, worse, but yeah, I don't know. I think it would be hard to not see it as a sign of, a vote of no confidence in the prosecutors in the case. I don't is it common for this district attorney to say, oh, okay, well, we hung jury, we're going back to trial, but we're switching up who's going to do it because I have 100% faith in him, but we just really need to spend taxpayer money to retain a different attorney to try this case.
Right, they're bringing somebody in from the private sector.
The only thing I could wonder that that I think is the wild card is whether or not this prosecutor has free hand to decide how to move forward and whether or not the point comes to not move forward with this case.
Right.
Right? It's not exactly like a special prosecutor or independent prosecutor that we'd see at the federal level. Mm-hmm. I'm curious to how much of a free hand this new guy has, because I've always kind of said, look, if you give everybody sodium pentothal at the DA's office, are all of them going to say, yeah, we think we got the right guy, or I should say we got the right girl in this case? Are they all going to say, yeah, I can't believe that any of this other evidence, this exculpatory evidence, has anything to do with anything?
Yeah.
There's got to be at least one person looking at this going, maybe we backed the wrong horse on this.
Yeah. Because
all this other stuff is wicked sus.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering if he starts looking into this, he's moving along, he can't probably just, go to the judge and bypass the DA and say we're dropping all the charges, but he might end up doing something where he might, offer a really sweet plea bargain for and operating under the influence with, as opposed to vehicular homicide. I mean, they might find a way to like just wrap this up. I don't think Reed's team is going to take that. I don't think they're going to, admit to any wrongdoing in this case. And I think it would be a mistake to do that. Like, some people are in this for Karen Reed. Mm-hmm. And some people are in this because they feel like the McCabe's are getting away with something.
And some people are in it because they see a corrupt system and they're really upset about it.
Yeah, yeah. And those last two things may overlap at some point, but there are some people, it's if you care about Karen Reed, then you don't want to see her to go to prison, and you might be like, it's pragmatic to just take this deal. You won't serve any jail time. You'll be able to move on with your life, blah, blah, blah. In some cases, like trial strategy wise, that's a win, right? Yeah. You get to go home. But, even though you have to, accept some responsibility whether or not you did it or not, right? That's a whole other calculation and a whole other discussion. But if you're in this for like, no, we don't want her to do that because if we do, we can never go after Colin or Brian or Jen or anybody that might have been involved in killing John O'Keefe and covering it up.
Yeah. Another lawyer.
But I was super surprised by this development.
Yeah, me too. Another lawyer weighed in, who's been weighing in a lot on this case, who says that he's very surprised, and something that is very rare is a DA's office bringing in a outside private sector ringer for a trial without recusing themselves due to a conflict. That's typically why an outside lawyer would be brought in.
Right. So either there is a perceived conflict that they are not saying.
That's exactly what the response is here. Yeah, that's why they're bringing them in. They're acknowledging a conflict without explicitly stating the conflict.
Yeah. So they'll be ready later on, so if they get accused of that.
That's essentially what this first lawyer was saying, that they're acknowledging the conflict without acknowledging the conflict.
Whatever that conflict may be.
Yeah. But this is somebody who's also defended cops. This is somebody who obviously defended Whitey Bulger. Mm-hmm. It's just a very interesting set of reactions to this. Of course, the anti-Karen Reed people are like, it's over for her. Free Karen Reed people are crying now. I made the mistake of responding to one of those tweets, and I spent the last 24 hours just being like completely harassed on Twitter, which has been pretty funny. Actually, I just kind of been ignoring it. But like, there's one person who's obviously tweeting under like 6 different accounts, pretending to be 6 people. It's actually pretty fucking funny. But yeah, it's been a really interesting series of responses since this came out. But my take is, they know they have a problem. They know that one of their big problems is the perception and the reality of conflict of interest. They're trying to get ahead of it, or at least demonstrate that they know that by hiring this outside guy. What I'm curious to see is what new experts this outside guy brings in. He probably has a network of experts that the state doesn't have. If I were a taxpayer in Norfolk County, I'd have questions. I'd want to see, the records and whatever. Mm-hmm. As we know from other reporting by another outlet, Norfolk County doesn't count the regular hours worked by its employees as costs toward prosecuting a case. We learned that by reading some other reporting. Mm-hmm. There's no way they can do that with this guy. His billable hours are what they are. Mm-hmm. So I'd want to know.
They can negotiate a certain special rate, or maybe he agrees to a cap, but yeah.
I'd want to know, how much is this going to cost? How much are outside experts going to cost? Like, what are the associated costs with this, and why? And I'm curious to know what the outcome is, and I do wonder if he was brought in to negotiate. I do. Mm-hmm. Because they don't have Trooper Paul anymore. There's no way they can use Trooper Paul. There's no way. They're not going to use Proctor. There's no way. Proctor's not being used in any cases anymore. So they're going to need new experts to combat the ARCA testimony. They are. Mm-hmm. And I think that the defense now knows...
If the ARCA testimony gets in.
Well, they need...
Or some of it does,
the defense now knows they need to bolster the ARCA testimony to give it more context. Yeah. And they're going to do that, certainly.
They got to somehow find a way to let the jury know that that's the... I guess that
it's not at the insurance company.
Yeah.
And it's not Turtle Boy.
It's from the FBI.
Yeah. So interesting development, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, and apparently, they have filed an appeal. People have filed an appeal of Judge Cannoni's decision
to the Superior Court.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we'll see how that goes. I still don't see how they're going to get this trial off for January, but we'll see.
Well, here was Alan Jackson's response to this news. Mm-hmm. Quote, "The news that Michael Morrissey has decided to use taxpayer funds to hire an outside lawyer to prosecute this case speaks volumes about his confidence in his own team. Mm-hmm. They can bring anyone they want to court. We will beat this unjust prosecution just like we did the last time. Like we've said to Mr. Morrissey previously, do your worst. We'll see you in court.
Do your worst.
The anti-Karen Read people, by the way, call that the Karen Read people freaking out and crying. I don't read that way, personally.
Yeah.
But that's how they're
Yeah, I mean, like if you said it was this, like, you know, who he is doesn't make anybody's boots tremble, because I don't think they really know, but it's more the idea that they've made this move, and so you're puzzled as to why.
Yeah.
As opposed to, whether or not he is going to be the best prosecutor for the government, that it's actually, him, like, oh, well, we didn't get we didn't have our A team in.
Yeah.
Yeah, one does not do this unless there is a particular reason.
Say what you want about Alan Jackson. He did defend Harvey Weinstein. He's had some high-profile clients who definitely did, some bad stuff. He's a defense attorney. That's his job.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
One thing Alan Jackson did do in that very, sort of neutral, not super great 2020 show, and he's done this multiple times, multiple interviews, has said publicly he has never been more sure, ever, of a client's innocence than he is of Karen Read's.
Yeah.
He's not using language that could be interpreted any other way. This is a former prosecutor who is publicly saying he would bet his career. He is 100% sure of her actual innocence and her factual innocence in this case. He's not couching it. He does not seem like he is going to accept less than continuing to fight that. I mean, I think any lawyer would present a great deal that would get her out of jail time or give her a couple months, but he just seems like too much of a competitor to not stand by that statement, having said it publicly on camera,
Yeah. I mean, and ultimately it's Karen's decision. It's not his, but yeah, no, I mean, you make a good point.
All right, well, we will continue to follow this and every other development that's going on, and I will have more for you in Readathons in the coming days. I promise, now that we are back. Kevin, thank you so much for joining me for this edition of the Readathon.
Partners in Crime Media.